Hi guys, so today we're going to be talking about Chapter 3, Section 6, Solving Multi-Step Inequalities. So to solve a multi-step inequality, we have to first start off by solving the distributive property. Once we do that, we're going to combine any like terms we see. The next step would be to solve any addition or subtraction, and the last thing would be solving using any multiplication or division. So let's say, for example, we're given this inequality, 2y plus 7 is greater than 11. The first step that I want to do here is see if there are any distributive properties that I need to complete. I don't see any distributive properties because I don't see anything where we have, for example, like a number like 3, and then we have two numbers inside, or a variable where we have x plus, I guess, 7. If we saw something like this, we could say we could solve a distributive property. And the reason why I can say that is because we can distribute this 3, multiply it to the x, and then to the 7. But since we don't have that in this inequality here, I'm just going to clear it and then just continue on with the other steps. The next step was to combine any like terms we see. On the left side, I don't see any like terms, and then neither do I see any like terms on the right side as well. So next step is going to be to solve any addition or subtraction. Right here, I know that if I were to subtract by 7 to this side of the equation, and remember it's very similar to having an equal sign there, whatever I do to one side of the inequality, I have to do to the other. So if I subtract by 7 on the left side, that means that I have to subtract by 7 on the right side as well. And so these two 7s will cancel out with each other. I can drop down the 2y, and I'll be left with 2y plus 0 is greater than 11 minus 7. 11 minus 7, that equals to positive 4. Then I'm left with 2y being greater than positive 4. Next step to do is just to divide by 2 on both sides, since I see here that 2 is multiplying with y. So I want to complete the opposite operation, which will be to divide by 2, and that would cancel out my 2, and I'm left with y being greater than positive 2. So the next step to do is to graph my solution. I'm going to start off by in the middle creating a circle. I'm going to leave it as an empty circle because of the fact that we're only saying that y is greater than 2. We're not saying that y is greater than or equal to 2. That's not the case here. If that was the case, we would have filled in the circle. But since we have y is greater than 2, I'm going to write down that underneath the circle, this point represents 2. And we're going to just write down a few extra numbers here. That way it kind of helps us know where on the graph we are. Okay. And since we're saying y is greater than 2, that means that we're looking at numbers that are bigger than 2. And all the numbers that are bigger than 2 are represented on the right side of the graph. So I'm going to draw my arrow to the right side because we have here 4. 4 is bigger than 2, so that's a true statement. We also have here 7 is bigger than 2. That's also a true statement. And so that would be my graph. Let me clear my drawing and then let's move on to the next one. The next question is asking us to solve the inequality 3 plus b divided by 3 is less than or equal to 7. And afterwards, we're going to graph our solution. So again, I don't see any distribution properties that I can solve. I also don't see any like terms. So I'm going to start off by, oops, no, it moved back. Okay, there you go. So I'm going to start off by cutting my inequality first. That just reminds me, whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. I'm going to subtract by 3 on both sides. I want to subtract by 3 so that I can get rid of the 3 on the left side where the b is at. And so I can drop down that b divided by 3. Can write down this symbol less than or equal to 7 minus 3. 7 minus 3, that equals to positive 4. The next thing that we can do here, I see that b is dividing by 3. So I'm going to complete that opposite operation, which will be to multiply by 3 on both sides. When I multiply by 3 on both sides, I cancel out that 3, and I'm left with b being less than or equal to positive 12. And so this would be my answer. The last thing to do is just to graph. So I'm going to start off with a circle, and it's telling me that b is less than or equal to 12. That means b can be less than 12 or b can be equal to 12. And because b can be equal to 12, that means that I'm going to fill in this circle and write down 12 underneath, because we are including 12 into our numbers that b could possibly be. Afterwards, I'm just going to write down the other numbers next to 12. So 12, 13, 14, 15, it just continues to increase on the right side of 12. And then on the left side is numbers that are just decreasing by 12. Since b is less than, or could possibly be less than 12, that means that b is either 12 or any number that's smaller than 12 here. And so I'm just going to draw my arrow to the left side, because all these numbers fit with that statement of b being less than or equal to 12. So right here, this is a true statement because 10 is less than or equal to 12. This number 12 is included because 12 is less than or equal to 12. 7 works out. 7 is less than or equal to 12 as well. So all of those fit the graph here. Okay. And then let's try out one more problem. So this time we have 3m minus 8 is greater than 5 parentheses negative 6 plus m. This one's a little bit different, where we are given the distribution property. And so because we're given the distribution property, the first thing that I want to do is solve that distributive property. So when I'm solving distributive properties, I'm going to get this 5, multiply it with the negative 6, and then I'm going to multiply it with the variable m. So I'm going to write down my new equation. I have here 3m minus 8 is greater than 5 times negative 6. That equals to negative 30. And then I also have here 5 times m. 5 times m, that equals to 5m. And so I'm left with negative 30 plus 5m. On the right side, I don't see any like terms I can combine, so I'm not going to do that. Neither on the left side are there any like terms. So the next step to do is to either add or subtract. I can add 8 over here and move the 8 to one side. So if I do that, whatever I do to one side, I gotta do to the other. When I add 8, I drop down that 3m, and I'm left with 3m being greater than negative 30 plus 8. That gives me negative 22. and then I can drop down the 5m. The next step is to move the m's. I'm going to move the 5m to this side of the equation. That way I can just get 1m. And so I'm going to subtract 5m to both sides. When I subtract 5m to both sides, I'm left with negative 2m being greater than negative 22. And then I see that negative 2 is multiplying with m. So I can complete the opposite operation, which will be to divide negative 2 on both sides. When I divide negative 2 on both sides, I'm left with m being less than positive 11. Now it's important that you see right here, we just flip the sign. Remember that if I am dividing, for example right here, if I'm dividing or multiplying by a negative number, it's always important to flip the sign of that inequality. And then it's always good to make that as a note. So right here, I will type it out. So whenever you multiply or divide by a negative number, you always have to flip the inequality sign, which is the less than or greater than sign. Gotta flip those two, gotta flip it. Okay. Alright, last step is to graph. So right here, I'm going to graph out m being less than 11. So I'm going to start off by drawing a circle, and underneath I'm going to have 11. The circle is going to stay empty because m is not equal to 11. It's just saying that it's less than 11. Then on the right side, I'm going to write down the numbers that are next to 11, which are 12 and 13, 14, 15, and 16. On the left side of 11, we have 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, and so on. And the statement is telling me that m is going to be less than 11, which means m is going to be any number that's smaller than 11. And so I'm going to draw my arrow over the numbers that are smaller than 11. And that would be my answer. Alright, so let me clear this. And then let's try it out. So right here, the question is asking you to solve the inequality and then graph your solution for 11 minus 4z being less than negative 1. So I'll give you a few minutes to work on this on your own first. Alright. So let's try it out. We have here 11 minus 4z being less than negative 1. So the first step that I want to complete is the adding or subtracting because of the fact that I don't see any distributive properties. I also don't see any like terms that I can combine on the left side or the right side. So I'm going to start off by subtracting 11 on both sides. When I subtract 11 on both sides, I drop down that 4z. I'm left with 4z being less than negative 12. Then right here, I can divide negative 4 on both sides. When I divide negative 4 on both sides, I'm left with z. And then negative 12 divided by negative 4 gives me positive 3. And since I'm dividing by a negative number, that means I have to flip my inequality symbol to being greater than. And so since I have z is greater than 3, I'm going to write or draw a circle, and underneath is going to be 3. It's going to stay as an empty circle because we're not saying that z is equal to 3. We're just saying z is greater than 3. And then on the right side, I'm going to write down 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. On the left side, the numbers are decreasing, so I get 2, 1, 0, -1, -2, and so on. And the statement is telling me here that 3 is greater than z is greater than 3. So that means that we're looking at numbers, any numbers that are bigger than 3. So I'm going to draw my arrow to the right. And so that would be my answer. So hopefully this helps. Good luck.